leading intellectual figure on the Antioch side, says, please help. And he, in his own words, I await the sentence of the apostolic see. I beseech and implore your holiness to succor or help me in my appeal to your fair and righteous tribunal. So again, that recognition among Eastern patriarchs and bishops that the Pope, that the see in Rome has a certain authority that the other sees don't have, because we don't see them making these appeals to other places. Pope Leo the Great calls a local synod in Rome, and he immediately annuls anything that the Latrocinium, the robber council, has done, saying this is all void, it has no effect. And then he sends out a letter to the Western Roman Emperor, it's one of the very last ones here, Valentinian III, his wife, who will later be kidnapped by a barbarian tribe and be forced to be a consort of a barbarian king. Pulcheria, the wife, or the older sister of Emperor Theodosius, and the monks in Constantinople, that he wants to have a new council, but this time held in the West, away from all the infighting in the East and all the intrigue in the West. He wants it to be held, and that he refuses to recognize the new patriarch in Constantinople. Well, within months, Flavian, the patriarch, dies, the one who has been deposed. He dies, and then within a few more months, the emperor himself dies. So this controversy blows up, and when Theodosius II dies, his sister, who is much more favorable to Pope Leo the Great and Flavian, she is now empress. And she quickly marries a senator, so she has an emperor, but she's kind of running the show behind the scenes. And as with many of the empresses, not all, but many of the empresses in Byzantium, their theology tends to be very orthodox and their administration very poor. But she's not there a long time. She convinces her husband that they have to have a council to settle this meeting. Although this is not what Pope Leo the Great wanted. He was opposed to this, the Council of Chalcedon initially, because he thought the wounds are too deep right now. This is not going to end well. There needs to be a cooling off period, basically. But before the message could get from Rome to Constantinople, a few years before the telegraph even, the letters have already gone out for the emperor calling this new one. So he says, all right, and he sends the tome, that letter he wrote to Flavian, and he sends some more papal legates or representatives. Here's a little ivory carving of Empress Pulcheria from the mid-400s over on the right-hand side. There were between 300 and 500 bishops that attended. This council they were initially going to have in Nicaea, right? They were going to have it there. But then as the date approaches, as we're getting into September itself, the Huns, the nice, friendly, barbarian Huns, never hurt anyone, start not only destroying Italy, but are starting to sweep down towards Constantinople. And the emperor says, we have to hold things closer because because these Huns are causing too much problem. I have to be close to the capital. So at the last minute, they moved the council from Nicaea up to Chalcedon. And if you're trying to find Chalcedon, and talk to Diane about this, Chalcedon is to Constantinople as Clarksville is to Louisville. It's just across the water. So it's like a suburb on the other side of the water. And the council opens on October 8th, 451. The president, so the one who's going to be overseeing the council is not Dioscorus from Alexandria, but the papal legate Pascanasus. And he will be the one who kind of runs the day-to-day activity of the council itself. And the first thing that is done is that Dioscorus, that patriarch of Alexandria, is not given a seat, given no vote because of the things he did at the last council. He's made to kind of set out with the non-voters and told that he's going to be tried there for what he has done. And that Theodoret of Cyrus, the one who Dioscorus thinks is an historian and beyond the pale, is given a vote. Okay. So the first day, when it opens on October 8th, the session reads the proceedings of what happened 2 years before at the Robber Council. And those who took place in it quickly grow embarrassed of what has happened, and they all start peeling off and leaving Dioscorus more and more isolated by himself. And meanwhile, the story goes, he's calling him, the ones who are abandoning him, calling him names under his breath, and it's not looking very good for him. And they read the letter that John of Antioch sends to Cyril, that formula of union, which brought about a peace and unity for about 10 years. And the bishops start cheering it, and Dioscorus, and saying this is what we believe, and Dioscorus will not accept it because it mentions two natures. He cannot allow himself or allow the possibility that his understanding of nature might not be the only possible one out there. So Dioscorus continued to hold that Cyril rejected any mention of two natures after the incarnation, and that Flavian, the former Archbishop of Constantinople, had been rightly deposed. He was not sorry about that at all, even though he had died along the way, and some of the bishops start referring to him as the murderer of Flavian. The bishops present found Flavian's doctrinal statement to the emperor from the home synod to be perfectly orthodox, no problem with it. And even one of Dioscorus' closest supporters, the Patriarch of Jerusalem, abandons Dioscorus at this point. So he's down to just a handful of supporters. And the day ends with a proposal to try Dioscorus, the Patriarch of Jerusalem, and a few other bishops for causing all this chaos and disorder at the last council. The second session, which starts a couple days later, begins with the reading of the Nicene Creed, and then the Creed from Constantinople. This is where the Creed of Constantinople comes back in. And at the Council of Chalcedon, many of the bishops had never heard of it. They didn't really know it was out there. But it is affirmed at this point, as is the Council of Ephesus. So, Council of Chalcedon, one of the important things it does is it reaffirms which are the early ecumenical councils. And so it stresses we accept everything that Nicaea taught, and that Constantinople taught, and that Ephesus taught. So those are the three that it draws out. They also read Cyril's second letter to Nestorius. This is what was read at Ephesus and was kind of agreed upon. And that letter from John of Antioch to Cyril, as well as Leo's tome. Now, Leo's tome is long, and while it's a good thing to read, you can see the richness of the Christology and the significance of what we believe being drawn out there. It's too long to put up on one of these slides, or even 10 of these slides. It's rather so. I just put up some excerpts from it. So this is kind of how it begins. Eutyches, who was considered a man of honor because he had the title of priest, is shown to be very rash and extremely ignorant. And then he's saying some more judicious words for him later in the tome, in that letter. But some of the things that are pulled out and become very important for this council and for really the way Western Christianity and all of those from the East who follow Chalcedon, that understanding of how we understand Christ to exist, the divinity and the humanity to exist in this unity, are found here. He says, so the proper character of both natures was maintained